We ready to go? Okay, so in the end of Perek Aleph, we're towards the end of the first chapter, and we're learning about the animal soul. That's what we call it. And it's really a part of ourselves. The reason we call it animal is based on the Gemara. Because the Gemara says that in certain ways we're compared to animals, in certain ways we're compared to angels. So we're talking about the part of us that is compared to an animal, and the way the way we brought it up, that the difference in the animal and a human and a human being. I mean, what an animal is, an animal doesn't know anything besides itself. It's self-centered. And we have that part of us that we're self-centered, and we're just focusing on ourselves. And that we learned last week, that is the cause of a lot of negative things. That's the cause of depression, the cause of arrogance. It's focusing on the klipa, which we learned means on the outer realm of this world, and not recognize what's within the world. God that is within the world. We're going to talk now at the end of chapter 1 about the specialty of the physical soul of a Jew that has something unique, because it comes from Eitz Hadat Torah, the tree of knowledge that is a mixture of good and bad. And tree means source of energy, source of life. And we're going to learn that there is two types of klipa, two types of a way how the world is trying to conceal on Hashem. One is a complete concealment, and one is a concealment where you could still tell that there is God in the world. Okay? Now we don't understand these things, but we just know there's things that are kosher, things that are not kosher. So obviously things that are not kosher, that we're going to talk about it more in chapter 7, things that are not kosher means that the concealment of God is so intense that there is no way we could elevate it to Hashem, and that's why we have to stay away from it. But things that are kosher, it doesn't mean it's holy. We could make it holy, because it means that the concealment of God in these products is not 100%. It's called, there's a mixture of good and bad. What is the mixture of good and bad? So as we learned last week, that what Hashem did, Hashem created a klipa. A klipa means a shell. That this world, what is the interesting thing? Maybe someone for the shir? Someone called me before for the shir? So probably this person. Maybe this person is calling for shir. The way Hashem created the world is the difference in this world and the other higher worlds that exist is, but in all the worlds there is a revelation of God on a certain level. There is worlds that Hashem has revealed to them more. This world is a world where God is completely hidden. Okay? In other words, Hashem created a physical world, and the physicality of the world conceals on Hashem. It's like when you have a fruit with a shell on it, you don't necessarily know unless you're peeled once upon a time the shell, then you know there is a fruit under it. But if you saw this fruit for the first time, you may think that there is no fruit underneath, because all you see is a shell. And that's why this world is called the world of klipot, of shells, because all we see is the physicality. And in the physicality, there's spirituality. Every single physical creation has in it a spark of God, has in it God, otherwise it wouldn't exist. But it's completely concealed. And not only it's concealed in a way that you don't see it, you're not even aware that it's there. There's nothing telling you that I'm here. When you see something physical, it tells you this is what it is. It's all about waking up in the morning, having a good breakfast, having a lunch, having a supper, having enough sleep, having money to buy your needs, to buy clothing. That's all life is about. This is what the physical world tells you. Nothing else. There's nothing in the world that tells you you have to look for something beyond. And that was the greatness of Avraham Avinu, because he had no parents to teach him that, and he on his own got to the understanding that there is a creator, and eventually Hashem revealed himself to Avraham. But this is the world of Klippa. Now within the world there's two levels of Klippa. There is a Klippa which is considered a Klippa of mixture of good and bad. And when we say good or bad, so we said in Kabbalah, good is Hashem, and bad is, which we could all call negative and positive, is basically a place where God is hidden. It's basically a lie. So the whole physical world is called negative, not because it's negative, because there's a lot of positive in this world, but
separates.
But exactly, this energy in the world that is separating the world from Hashem, that is concealing the world from Hashem, that is the negative. So there is a saying of the Baal Shem Tov, there is a verse that says, Sur merav aseh tov. Stay away from the bad and do good. The Baal Shem Tov says, what does that mean? It means that whenever you are about to get involved in a physical activity, you're right now involving yourself with negative and positive. Because, for example, you're about to eat. There is the negative of it, which is just the intention of just satisfying yourself and enjoying the food. Okay, is the negative side of it, because in that side there's no God is not there at all. And the positive side of it is recognizing that what satisfies you in the food is because there's energy of Hashem in the food that could give you.
That's our animal part. That's the animal part.
That's the animal part, exactly. Right. But the God part is recognizing that.
It says in Pirkei Avot, if three people sit down
to eat, and they
don't mention Hashem, they're like animals.
Exactly. So if you recognize that there is a spark of God in the food, and that's what gives you food, that's what you're interested in. Because when we eat food, why did Hashem make it that we should have to eat food? After all, we're on a higher level than the animals. Why should we have to eat from the food of the plants, of the animals, whatever it is? Why should we need to do it? So the answer is,
thank Hashem for the food.
Right. Hashem wants us. It says like a table is like an altar, it's like a mizbech. What happened on the altar? The whole world was elevated to Hashem. When they had the altar, they had a human being bring an animal, and along with the animal they had some flour and some salt, which represents all the four elements of this world: the human, the animal, the plant, and the inanimate. And all that was elevated to Hashem. So we took a bit of everything, and that represented the whole world, and that elevated the whole world. So when you are eating, the goal is to elevate that God, spark of God in the food, to elevate it to Hashem. How is it going to be elevated to Hashem? When you go ahead.
But also it's to be to enable us to do for Hashem.
Exactly. When you take that food, and you know, and you're aware that it's that God gave you, and that's part of it will make a bracha to connect us, like you said, with the fact that it's created by God, and you make a bracha and you eat it with the intention that you will be able to live a life, and we live a life in order to serve Hashem. And when you are using that energy you got from the food to study Torah, to do a mitzvah, to do anything that is positive in this world that's connected with Hashem, you're elevating it. And that's the whole point. So this is what means aseh tov, focus on the godliness part of it. Focus on the spark of God that you may be able to elevate, because the whole world is full of godliness. Every creation, everything has God in it, and we have to connect it with Hashem, because right now it's in prison, in the physicality. And when we are making a bracha, we're making it spiritual. When we're using that energy to serve Hashem, we're making it spiritual, and that's our goal. So Klipat Noga is basically a klippa that Noga means light. It's klippa that the light shines through it, which means it's not such an intense klippa. The godliness in it is shining, and you're able to elevate it. But then there is, that's kosher. And then there is what we call klipat me'ah, impure, like completely impure. You can't even elevate it. Then you're not allowed to eat it. You can't say, I'm eating non-kosher and I want to elevate it to Hashem. It's not. You can't, because even though there's a spark of God in it, but it's so hidden that you can't have access to it. It's so hidden, and it's just going to make you, the clip of it, the impurity of it is so intense that when you're going to eat it, you're not going to be able to carry with the godliness, and it's just going to make you impure, and it's just going to make you even more far from God. And that's why we have to stay from it. So, we learned before that what we define good and bad is, again, good is godliness, and negative is the world, the concealment of God. And the way we define it is selfless and selfish, or self-centered and God-centered. When we are focused our life to the reality of the world, which is Hashem, that's good. That's good. But when we are focused on ourselves, that's called negative. So we said that human beings in general, what was the greatness that Hashem made Am Yisrael? Hashem chose us as His nation. Before that, there was what's so special about the Jewish people? Hashem's chosen nation. We are different in our neshama, in our godly soul. That's for sure, because the Gentiles don't have that neshama. But even the physical soul, which is a soul of a klipa, but the Jewish people, it's called klipat noga, which means it's a mixture of good and bad, which means God is revealed in that klipa. Now, that physical soul that the Jewish people have, different than the Gentiles, also some Gentiles have. The Chasidei Umot HaOlam. And the way we define it is when you could see somebody doing something with no ulterior motive, this is coming from that feeling of Hashem, of just doing it for the right reason. Okay? And this is a very high level, because we're talking about, if you remember, we learned last class that there could be a lot of ulterior motives. Like, definitely if someone is doing something in order to get is getting a lot of donation, or is helping people in order to get honor for it, or to get rewarded for it, that's considered ulterior motive. But it could be ulterior motive because my nature is to be kind, and I can't go to sleep at night if I saw someone miserable and I didn't help him. That's also, in a sense, ulterior motive. It's not coming, and so we said, what's a real nullification is when you're not really thinking about yourself. You just know it's the right thing, and you do it because it's the right thing. It's lahavdil, the opposite by the Germans, that they were saying we were just following orders. So it's the opposite. We're saying that because we recognize God in creation, we recognize that this is the right thing to do, and we do it because it's the right thing, not because we're going to feel good about it. We're going to feel good about it, but that's not the focus. So this is we see with Jewish people, and even Jews that may not be involved in Torah mitzvahs at all, because we have that. Like, for example, there's a story, there's obviously many stories. There was this young boy who was not religious at all, and he was traveling in India, and he saved, I don't know how long it took him to save that money to go on this trip, maybe a few years, and he saved some money, and he was planning to go for a 6-month trip. In the beginning of his trip, he came to this place, and there was a Jewish girl, the Israeli girl, who broke her leg. And in that place, you can't come with a car. You need a helicopter. And basically, to get a private helicopter to get her out to treat her, there's no one there to help her. Basically, in order to order a helicopter, they needed a lot of money. He took all the money he saved for this trip, and he gave it to this girl that he didn't know from anywhere. And it was so natural for him. And then he had to go, that was the end of his trip. I guess he had to go back to Israel after that. He didn't have any more money. But it's an unbelievable mitzvah and it's not because he knew it's a mitzvah or something. It's just because it's coming from a place we call Jewish heart. But it means a place of just recognizing what's right and doing it. And that doesn't have to come from the neshama, from the godly soul. We're talking about even our physical soul. Even someone who's not really in tune with his neshama, it can still happen, because even our physical soul as Jewish people has a mixture of good and bad, which means of self-centered and selflessness, And this could come, and again, this part could even be by some Gentiles, but generally not. And this some people are scared to learn with this part of Tanya. Well, not scared, but they're really a little bit nervous to learn this part of Tanya with Jews who are very secular, maybe, because people are very open-minded, saying that there's difference in Jews and non-Jews. So there was once a guy who convinced a taxi driver to start learning Tanya with him in New York, and he started learning, and they got to this part, and this guy was very secular, and he was afraid what's going to be his reaction. And when he learned it, he saw the guy was nervous. He says, "What's it all about?" Like I see it all the time. He says, whenever I take a Jew, whenever I take a non-Jew in my taxi, so if he's with a friend, I can give you a big tip. But if he's by himself, no tip. But with Jewish people, they always give a small tip. but always you get a tip. But non-Jew, like if it's somebody else that's in present, he gives a big tip. If he's by himself, there's no. Anyways, but again, we're not making a generalization about every non-Jew. It's just saying that in general, someone who has that in general. It's not saying that it's anybody's fault. That's the way we created. We're self-centered, and whenever we're under something, there's always a motive for it, and that's what's so unique about Am Yisrael, that we have this closeness to Hashem from our neshama and also from our physical side. And the physical side is a mixture, so we could be selfish and selfless. We could sometimes do something like that, but we have that even in our physical. Even a Jew who is not necessarily connected with his neshama may be hidden, because in order to reveal our neshama, we need Torah, we need mitzvahs. So a person still has neshama, but he's not really connected with it. But even from our physical side, we have this natural connection to Hashem, because it's a Torah. It's a mixture of good, positive, and negative. And I'm just going to say Gemara, so ask a question. Yeah.
I read concerning the animal souls that part of our purpose is to since it's connected to the heart and connected to ego, is to shrink the ego,
right,
doing personal simsum,
right,
just as Hashem did simsum,
right,
in creating the physical, shrinking the spiritual.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It's a great.
Yeah. Right.
Metaphor.
Yeah. Very nice. So there's actually a Gemara that talks about it. It talks about so a person may give tzedakah. I don't remember the whole Gemara, but the point of the Gemara is that it's okay to give tzedakah amenat, in order that someone should get better, someone should recover. Someone is sick in the family, so you give tzedakah, and the zchut in the merit of the person should get better, or that they succeed in parnasa, whatever it may be. And the Gemara asks about it. The Gemara actually brings another source where it says, and the Gemara says tzaddik gomer, it's like perfect. And the Gemara brings another source that it's not okay to do a mitzvah. I don't remember if it's a story with Nebuchadnezzar or a different story. Basically, that it's not okay to do a mitzvah for an ulterior motive. But then the Gemara gives an answer and says that it's talking about a Jew, and a Jew is different than a non-Jew. Why? The Gemara says like this: because what happens if a non-Jew would give tzedakah in order that someone should recover, and then what happens if the person doesn't recover? So the non-Jew may regret giving the tzedakah, but a Jew says, "Okay, we'll be for a mitzvah." So that's what the Gemara says. I think it's brought down in a few places in Shas. So it's in Gemara Psachim, maybe other places, but it's bringing the idea that, again, that there is a certain commitment that even when a Jew does a mitzvah, this is the beauty of Chassidus. There is a saying in the Gemara that if a person feels that he's not on the level of doing lishma, okay, lishma is the high level. Lishma means that you're doing it for the right reason. You feel I'm a shalom lishma. I'm doing it because I want to get respect. I want to get Gan Eden, whatever shalom lishma by you means. I want to. A lot of times people are motivated to be more observant, so they should succeed more in their physical life. If they have different issues with family or health or parnasa, whatever it is, so that's a lot of times that's a motivation. Okay, Or people on a higher level, their motivation is to get a better Gan Eden, a better paradise. So the Gemara says, even if a person is on that level, if you keep on going. We're not saying stop because you're not doing because ultimately you should do Lishma because that's the right thing to do. Because this is your connecting with your essence, with Hashem. Fine. Keep on doing it. Why? And this is the punchline. You first do the mitzvah not for the right reason, for ulterior motives. Eventually you'll do it for the right reason. It will bring you to a level eventually because it will have influence on you, and you'll get there one day. So Hasidus has an amazing line. It says like this: there's a hint over here that inside the loy lishma there is lishma, which means either that we recognize that in the person there's a lot of layers. You do have a layer of self-centeredness, but you have other layers within you. You have the good part of the physical soul. You have the neshama. So even if externally it seems that you're doing for ulterior motives, deep inside you are doing for the right reason. So keep on going. It's not only that eventually you'll get to that level. Right now you're on that level, deep inside. That's what I mean. Deep inside, in the Shalal Lishma, there is Lishma. So obviously, eventually you should get there, that you should also, in a revealed way, externally be doing it Lishma, doing it for the right reason, for the right purpose, and not for ulterior motives. But it's there. And this is actually famous, by us it's famous because the Rebbe said it so many times, a Rambam that talks about laws of divorce. And there is a law in divorce that you cannot, that a person cannot divorce against his will. So let's say there's a man who is mistreating his wife. So, and the rabbis decide that he must divorce her, and he refuses. So it's a problem because if he refuses to divorce, you can't force him to give the get to divorce her. It has to be Barbenu Ger Shameir Takana, that you also can't force a woman to get divorced. You have to freeze her that she be willing to get divorced. Okay, but that's something else. But we're talking about biblically. Biblically, if you can't force a man to divorce his wife unless he does it willingly. So what do you do if he needs to give a divorce because it's not going well? So the answer is lash the man until it says I'm willing to do it, and then he'll give it. So the Rambam asks the question. This is Gemara. The Gemara says, what's the point? We know, even if you lash the guy, give him 2-3 lashes, says, yes, I'm ready to divorce my wife. You know that he doesn't really want. So what's the point? It's a game. So the Rambam says that we know that deep inside every Jew, and the Rebbe says that what's amazing is that it's a halacha. Halacha means it's practical. It's not just something mystical. It's a halacha. That deep inside every Jew really wants to do all the mitzvot, and of course one of the mitzvot is to listen to the Beit Din, to listen to the rabbis, and that's what he really wants to do deep inside. The only thing is that he has a Yetzer Hara, an inclination. Yitzro hu shetakfo. The Yetzer Hara is basically challenging him. And when he says no, it's not really his internal will. It's external will. So when you lash him, and he ends up saying, yes, I'm ready, so you got no problem. Because externally he says, I'm ready. Deep inside we know he wants, so what's the problem? So it's somewhere in between there is someone says no. So this is a halacha, that's what you do. And that shows us, that's similar to the idea of Terech Shalosh Mabal Lishma, that deep inside, that whenever we do something, we're all involved in this mitzvah. So even though we may have the external feeling of thinking of benefits that we're going to get from the mitzvah, but deep inside we have this feeling of just doing the mitzvah because it's a mitzvah, because we want to connect with Hashem. And this is why, and because of that, even if a Jew does a mitzvah only because he wants to succeed in parnasa, in health, and then it doesn't work out for him, he'll still be happy he did the mitzvah because that's what he felt deep inside all the time. So this is the special things about. Okay, so let's read it inside and then we're going to go to chapter 2. Page Vav. Page Vav. On top. We learned that there is negative midot, negative attribute traits. Today's class is very positive because the other class was very negative. So the other class we learned about the negative traits that could come from the self-centeredness of the animal soul, the physical soul. He says, "V'gam," the top line, "V'gam midot tovot." There's also good attribute traits. Shebeteva kol Yisrael b'tovatam. That is by nature of every Jew. Not from the neshama. The nature, the physical nature of a Jew, k'mo rachmanut v'gmilut chasadim. Like rachmanut, having rachmanut, and milut chasadim. It says in the Gemara that Jewish people have three things by nature: rachmanim, gomlei chasadim, and baishanim. So there's a question why it doesn't say over here baishanim. So it says that really by nature Jews are not shy; they're very aggressive. And when Hashem gave us the Torah, it influenced us. It brought us a certain level of bitul, of nullification, that we became shameful and shy people. So without Torah, we could. The natural state of a Jew is that he's aggressive, and not necessarily shy. Okay, anyways, so the nature of a Jew is rachmanut, to be merciful, v'gomlei chasadim, and to be kind, and to do gemilut chasadim. But that comes from the physical soul of a Jew, kibe Yisrael, because by Jews nefesh du di klipa, this nefesh of klipa, which again is hiding on the reality of Hashem, he miklipat noga. It's a klipa that has noga, that has or in it. Shesh bagan kentov. The imisot etzadat over, and that comes from the secret of etzadat, the mixture of good and bad, that is not a complete klipa, not a complete concealment, and there is feelings of goodness, of selflessness, of kedusha, of godliness. Mashenken nafshot umot of degelulim, but the souls of the nations, and mishal klipot meot, sheba im tov klal. They come from the other three klipot that you don't feel the godliness in it at all. It says in Eitz Chaim, that when the nations do great things, they do it for themselves, for their own benefit, for their own ulterior motive. The Gemara says that what's the chesed lovim chatat? That the chesed of the nations is chatat. It's lacking. That all the tzedakah that the nations of the world do is only to brag about it and to get credit for it. And again, I'm emphasizing again that it's not everyone, but there is some exceptions to the rule. And people bring out, I don't know, nobody is asking over here, but in the past when I learned this, people ask, well, you could find Jews who are so bad, and non-Jews are so good. So it's really, we're not talking about, obviously, we're not saying that a Jew cannot be worse than a non-Jew. It's basically saying, it's saying generally that the Gentiles, in general, when they're doing great things, chesed and tzedakah, and it comes, it's many times, generally speaking, it's coming from ulterior motives, but there is exceptions to the rule, those who are not. And I'm not sure about our days, because we're coming close to Mashiach, so the whole world is getting more refined. It could be that today it's more than what it used to be. I don't know about that. I'm not. Now with the Jews, we said that it's on the one hand, we know that we spoke about in the other classes that when you have greater potential for the good, you have greater potential for the bad. So it's true that a Jew could be even greater sinner than a non-Jew. That's for sure true. Because we have all these energies that could unfortunately go in a bad way. And one second, and then when we're talking about the physical soul, we're saying that even a Jew is not in touch with his neshama, just a physical soul has in it both. So we have naturally a drive to do things, to do chesed and to do for others, even with no ulterior motive. And we actually see it all the time. I mean, people come to Israel, people make aliyah, they right away feel a difference. Here, everybody cares about you. if you drive too fast, or if you're everybody had some experiences, but I had like a very interesting experience. It was a little bit too extreme. I took my wife to buy clothing somewhere in Tafiyot. So I was in the car, and the baby was in the car seat. Suddenly someone knocks on the window, says the baby's head is crooked. I should straighten the head of the baby inside. So, like if it would be anywhere else, they would be embarrassed that even looked into my car, So, but it's coming from a point of. It's coming from a good point. It comes to a point of. This person has no gain what's going on with my baby in the car, but it's really like very. It's a feeling of just doing the right thing all the time, and a lot of people are trying to do the right thing. It is. And Chassidus teaches us to always look at that. Like there's a famous story of the king. He was one from all the kings of David. There was one king who was considered the greatest sinner. And one of the things he did, he tried. I think it was that one. I'm mixing up. Anyway, there's a king Uzziyahu, and he became very arrogant after he won a big war. Uzziyahu became arrogant to convince them because they hid him in the Holy of Holies for 7 years, and the first 7 years of his life, because the whole family was killed, and they saved him, and they hid him in the Kodesh Kodashim for 7 years, and then they convinced him that he must be God, because if he could be in the Holy of Holies for 7 years and not die, he must be God. And then he eventually listened to it, and I hope I'm not mixing up two different people. Anyways, Uzziyahu, the king Uzziyahu, I'm not sure I think it was him, but anyways, he decided one day to bring Ketoret and which is a great sin. And then right away he got leprosy, and then for 15 years he had to live by himself. He had to be all by himself in a city, and after he had leprosy. So everybody thinks about it in a bad way. Like the Kohanim warned him, don't do it, and he just didn't care, and he did the Ketoret. And we actually see in the Psukim afterwards, it says that his son, I think his name was Yotam, he says that Yotam was tzaddik just like his father. So right away the people ask, what does that mean? His father was not tzaddik. So we see from that, in general he was a tzaddik, but in that thing it was a wicked thing to do. So we see from that even though it was a very negative thing to do, but he had good intentions. In his mind he was trying to do the Ketoret. He was trying, even though he did something wrong, but he had the desire to become close to God and do this great service that only Kohanim could do. It's the greatest avodah. Ketoret is like being a tzaddik, it's like Ketoret. It's like the greatest thing, the greatest avodah. And he wanted to do it. And this is where Chassidus understands also with the 250 people with the Korach, that they knew. Rashi also brings it down. That they knew that they're going to get, Moshe said only one is going to survive. All the other 250 that will bring Torah will die. Korach thought that it was him, but those 250, they knew that it's probably...
And Aaron's two sons, they tried to get close to
Right. It's all with good reason. They wanted to have the opportunity, and so that's one. That's the 250 people who we read in the Torah. We think they were the biggest sinners because Moshe Rabbeinu warned them, and they were with Korach, but they had a kavanah. They had a desire to come close to God, and the same happened with the children of Aaron, and the same happened with the Kohanim Gedolim. The Tzdukim in the second Bet HaMikdash. There was hundreds of them, because every year they would die in Yom Kippur. And you think, why would they do it? They would bribe the king to become a Kohen Gadol, to become a high priest, and on Yom Kippur, when they went into the Holy of Holies, they died. So that's the only part of the story that we always think about, that how sinful they were. But the Rebbe says, look at the positive side. Look how that's just drive. That they obviously there was a sin, there was a negative side to it, but there was also a positive. They wanted to come close to Hashem, and they're ready to give up their lives for it. So it's an unbelievable thing. So we understand that in Am Yisrael, that's the most amazing thing about Am Yisrael, that even when a lot of times you see you see people involved in a negative thing, in it you could find positive. And it's not coming to justify what they're doing. When a person sins, he sins, but it's to show how much kedusha, how much holiness there is in Am Yisrael, that even when we sin, there's aspect of kedusha in everything. Every time, like the Rabbi Yitzchak Barditcher always spoke good about Am Yisrael, he said, I never found, we know that whenever someone sins, he creates a bad malach, bad angel, and mitzvah is a good angel. He said, I never saw an angel that was created from a sin of a Jew that is healthy 100%, that he has all of his organs. Because when a Jew sins, it can be 100% sin. There is some positive involved in it. And there's for sure, either he does it with a broken heart, so then this angel doesn't have a heart, or he does it with so there is, so this is what we're learning. Okay. Perek Bet. Now we're starting the second chapter, and we'll start this Perek with an amazing story that happened with Rabbi Grossman. Rabbi Grossman had a special relation. Everybody heard Rabbi Grossman in Migdal Emek. He had a great relation with the Rebbe. And one time, the Rebbe asked the secretary to call Rabbi Grossman to go visit someone in prison. I don't remember what it was. This Jew could have been. He was a lawyer before. He had something. He was like very respected. He had a very good job, very important job, and he got messed up, whatever the story was, and he was going to sit in jail for a lot of years, and he was already getting old. So it's a very sad story. And the Rebbe, true story, yeah. The secretary of the Rebbe, I don't remember if it was from the oil, but anyways, the Rebbe left the oil, and then the Rebbe sent. The Rebbe knew about this, and the Rebbe sent Rabbi Grossman to go and talk with him. Rabbi Grossman, I think, in general, had experiences of people that were in prison and he inspired them. So, and the Rebbe said, so the Rabbi Grossman tells the story that he went to see this man, and obviously he was impressed with the Rebbe caring about this Jew. You know, you think the guy gets in trouble, the reaction is usually, oh, he got himself messed up, so, you know, let him suffer for whatever he did. But the Rebbe cared for him, and the Rebbe sent Rabbi Grossman to speak to him. And it was Hashgacha Pratis that week the Rebbe spoke at for bringing something that he used to inspire this Jew. And it was the Parshas Tazria. Parshas Tazria talks about the laws of human, and it comes right after Parshas Shmini, where it talks about the laws of animals. So the question: why is the Torah first dealing with the laws of animals and then the laws of humans? Right? So the answer is, just like Hashem created the human after the animals, so too when the Torah deals with the laws of human after animals. So. And then there's a medrash that says that when Hashem created Adam, He said, if you merit, we're going to tell you, there's a pasuk, Achor Bakedem Sartani, that we were created Achor at the end, and Bakedem and the first. If we go in a good way, Hashem says to us, you are even higher than the Malachim. And if we don't merit, then Hashem says to us, even a little mosquito, a little yatush, little fly came before you. So the Rebbe asked the question, what does it mean if you merit, you don't merit? What is the reality? Are we created before or after? So the Rebbe brought out the answer, which is based on what we're learning right now, that in truth we have within ourselves two parts. We have the neshama, the godly soul, and then we have the physical soul. Now, when Hashem created Adam, and He created him the last of creation, that's his physical side. And that's why it said that Adam was created Achor Bakedem. The physical side of Adam, the physical soul, was created after the entire creation. But then we have a godly soul, which the neshama, it says in the Medrash, came even before the creation of the world. So basically, depends on the person. If he's activating his physical side, his animal side, then we tell him, if you emphasize your physical side, then we tell him you're even worse than the animals. Even the little fly is better than you, who was created before you. But if a person activates his neshama, then a person is then a person is even higher than the malachim. So, what do we learn from that? We learn from that something very powerful that we're bringing over here. That Hashem really took a neshama, part of God, which comes from the highest place possible, and He put it in the lowest place possible. Because another interesting thing, when Hashem created the world, all the animals He created body and soul together. And the human being, first Hashem made his body from the earth, from the dirt, and then He put the soul inside. And according to Kabbalah, because of that, the body of the human is more coarse than animals. And that's what we see, that there's people who could act worse than animals. Our body has the potential, is in essence lower than even the animals, and that's what the Medrash says, that the fact that we created last is because we're lower physically, in a sense. Our physical side is lower than the animals, and we could be even worse. So we have the choice what to act with. But that's the most amazing thing, because Hashem wanted to make a dwelling. The Rav Tachtonim, it says in the Medrash, Hashem wanted to dwell in the lowest. So we are the shluchim of Hashem. Hashem made us connected to the lowest part of the physical world, in this filthy and it's a nice word, filthy, but it's like very coarse and physical body, and in it He put the highest thing, the neshama, the godly soul. And that was His message to this prisoner, that of course for some reason his physical side overcome the spiritual side, but just the understanding that this is what we are, and we shouldn't get depressed if one day we see that our physical side is taking over, because this is why Hashem created us, and it's a big challenge. And if we fail, we have to understand. Of course, we shouldn't give in, but we have to understand this is the way we created, and we shouldn't. And we have to understand that in the contrary, when a person falls, like being in jail, right now, every moment that he is continuing with a life of Torah mitzvahs, he's really doing an amazing thing, because he's really bringing God to the lowest place possible. So that's really okay. Let's start reading inside. Perek Bet. V'nefesh hashenit beYisrael, the second soul of a Jew, hi chelek Elokam mimal mamash. It's part of God from above, mamash, literally. As it says, Vayibach be'avam nishmat chayim. When Hashem gave the neshama to Adam Arishon, it says that He blew in his nostrils a soul. Also, every morning we say the prayer of L'kai Neshama, and you blew the neshama in within me. The Zohar says, the Zohar learns from this pasuk that when you blow from within. When you blow, you're taking out your inner energy. That's why you get tired. A person could speak from today till tomorrow, it won't get tired. Because when you speak, it's external energy. But when you blow, it's energy that comes from within. You get tired very fast. So we learn from that, the Zohar says, that the difference between the creation of Adam and the creation of the entire world, that the entire world is created from the speech of Hashem. And only when Hashem created Adam, it says Hashem blew. Now we know that the Torah, we spoke about last class, the Torah is just speaking in our language. Obviously Hashem is beyond these terminologies, but the Torah is just using meshalim, analogies, like ideas that we could have their understanding. So the Torah uses the word speech that Hashem spoke in order to create the entire world, including the angels, because there's an argument the angels were created on Yom Sheni or Yom Chamishi, but they were created as part of creation that was created from speech. And Adam, the neshama, is from blowing. And what's blowing? Blowing comes within, which shows us right away the difference between the special neshama that we have and the rest of the creation. That the rest of the creation has a soul that is more external. In other words, it's like when you speak, that the breath it comes from, it's more external, less of a. We're going to see in a moment. It could be compared to children and friends. If you have friends, the relation with them, you may be very good friends, but it's more of an external thing. But your children is part of your essence. It's more of essential connection. So this is the greatness of the neshama of a Jew, that our neshama comes directly from within the godliness, within God. Okay? We understand that everything comes from Hashem, but we're talking about we're going to learn later on in Perek Bet, what does that mean exactly? If everything comes from one source, there could be so many different levels. But just like we understand within ourselves that our speech is more external, and when we're blowing, it's coming from within. And there's actually other ways to put it. We're going to learn now 3 different ways how we learn it. So let's read a few more lines. Kacha derech mashal, so too, neshamot Yisrael lu b'machshava. It says in the Midrash that the neshamot of Am Yisrael came up in the thought of God before the creation. So again, Chassidus says it's not just, we came in the thought of God. It's not just a wording over here. We are making another comparison between the Jewish soul and the rest of creation. That the rest of creation was created from speech, and we are on the level of thought. Now think to yourself, what is in thought and speech? Thought, when you think about your feelings or about something you understand, you're thinking it the way you really think it. The way you think it to yourself. When you speak it, you can never express in your speech what you really feel and what you really understand. In your speech is always going to be a little ray, a little external part of what you really feel or what you really understand. So the difference in the neshama is like machshava, like thought. And the rest of the creation is dibur. Hashem created, and that's what it says clearly, because we see that Hashem created the world with speech, with dibur. And about the neshama of Am Yisrael that came before the creation, it says the Midrash, we came from the level of thought. Alu b'machshava, we came up in the thought of Hashem before. And there's one more comparison, and that's we'll learn probably next time about children. That we are like children that come from the essence of the parents, as opposed to friends that are more. So we understand that the whole world has a relationship with Hashem, and the whole world is connected to Hashem. But but when Hashem created the world, like we said before, Hashem enclosed godliness in a klippa, in a shell, and you don't have the ability to really connect with Hashem, but we have the ability to do it as a Jew. So I just want to talk about a story that happened in the Chumash that could reflect on this and show us what's so special about our neshama. When Hashem created Adam, all the malachim, all the angels said, wow, this is the chosen of creation. What is the greatness of Adam? And Hashem said, I will show you how smart he is. Hashem brought all the animals, and he said to the angels, could you name the animals? And the angels couldn't do it. And then Adam named all the animals, and Hashem said, wow, look how smart he is. So the question is, first of all, why couldn't the angels do it? Why they couldn't just figure out to give, just like every language, you make up a language, say, that's first question. And second of all, why does it make it, why does that make the Adam HaRishon so significant? So it's explained in Kabbalah that every creation in this world has a parallel in the spiritual. So, for example, we know that there's angels that are called animals. The soul of the animals here come from those souls. So let's talk more general. When we see a lion here, there is in the chariot of God also a lion, an angel called a lion, and his soul comes from that soul, and his name is Aryeh. Okay, so the name of a person, the letters of the name is not just. It's not like other languages that people just say, okay, let's call this a table, let's call this a chair. The letters, every letter in the alphabet is a different type of energy of Hashem coming down. That's what otiyot means. We learned about the other day, ata. Ot, in the Aramaic, ot means come. It's 22 ways, 22 letters, how Hashem comes to the world, different types of hamshachot, of drawing down of the ore. So every person has a name, right? That's the name of the neshama. That's that's what we call the neshama by the brit, because we learned the other day. Because by brit milah, that's when the neshama enters the body, and Hashem gives prophecy, and that's the prophecy that we have. Why do we need prophecy for it? Because we know exactly what are the letters that connect my neshama and God, and every neshama is different. So the parents have a certain nevuah. Like there was a great rabbi who was asked to help with a name, and he said, "I don't want to take away from you the nevuah that you have a chance to have a nevuah to choose a name for your child. I don't want to take it away from you." So it's a nevuah to know which name connects with the neshama of the child, and the parents get this prophecy before they give the name. And so too, the lion that is named Aryeh, Aleph Resh Yud Hey, that's the DNA of his neshama, of his soul. So the angels, all they needed to do, they just had to see the connection between the lion and the connection lying above, and to know the name. Other Rishon was able to do it, and they couldn't do it. Why? That's the big question. Why they couldn't? So we understand it's a great wisdom to look at the physical creation and to see where it's coming from. Why is it so difficult? Because, like we just explained, in this world, everything has a concealment. It becomes physical, and the physical is blocking the spark of God, or the letters of God that is within the creation. You don't see it. You have no clue about it. So even the Malachim couldn't see through, and they couldn't see through the physical lion that the DNA that's all this lion is a little ray, is a little spark from that angel lion. Adam was able to do it. Why was he able to do it? Because Adam has the ability to break through the barrier. That's one example, that Adam could do what angels can do. And there's one more story in the Torah with the Meraglim. The whole story with the Meraglim, according to Kabbalah, why the Meraglim didn't want to go into Eretz Yisrael. They were afraid of the physicality. They wanted to stay in the desert, to stay spiritual. They weren't involved. They were afraid to get involved in the physicality. So based on that, the Kabbalah explains why did the spies, the Meraglim, emphasize so much the giants, and the way they said it, Nephilim, those who fell from heaven. Because we know that there was the giants, and the giants were originally angels who told God, when God, in the beginning of creation, was watching all the mess that was going on in the world, and Hashem wanted to destroy the world. And they said to God, "Send us down. We'll teach them how to behave." And those angels, because they were angels originally and they fell, they ended up being giants too. And what was the end? Not only that they weren't good role models, they ended up bringing the world into worse sin. So what the Meraglim were trying to say, we learned that they say, "Why? So how could we ever conquer Israel when there is such giants that we have to fight with?" But according to Kabbalah, Hasidus explains that there was another twist to this. That you look, even these angels who Nephilim, who fell from heaven, who were angels originally, once they came here, they got involved in the physical world, they fell and they became sinners. What's going to happen with us when we enter the land? So what's the answer? The answer is yes, we could do what angels cannot do. And why? This is the answer. Because the angels were created as part of creation, and we were not. In other words, of course, we have our side that's part of creation, that's our physical side, but Hashem gave us a neshama that is part of God, and this is an unbelievable thing. And what does it mean being part of God? Being part of God means, just like we understand that that even though this world is a concealment, and we don't see God, obviously it's a concealment for us, not concealment for God. God could see through. Nothing is concealing. That's the Hashem Elokim. Nothing is concealing God before God, right? And nothing could overpower God. And we have a spark. Our neshama is a spark of Hashem. So we have the ability to break the klippa because we have we have the neshama that what we're talking about right now is similar to blowing. What is it blowing? The two examples we gave, one is thought and one is blowing. That's examples that are written in the Chumash and the Medrash. And what is this idea? A thought is the way you see things to yourself, which means we thought of God, which means that's the way God really sees the world. Speech is the way you are giving it to others. It's already contracted, right? So the world doesn't have that. The world is created from Hashem's speech, including the Malachim. They are, just like when you speak, you're contracting what you feel and what you understand. People have very little of what you really are, and they are very living in concealment. That's like the whole world is a great concealment. Even the Malachim have a certain concealment, a certain limit, and that's why the Malachim, they're limited. They could only be Chesed or Gevura. They're very limited, and once they're here, they don't have this flexibility that we have. They're very limited, and once they fall into this world, they're not able to break through the cliff. Or they're not able. It's very likely for them to fail, and even when the Malachim, they can break through the physicality and see the names of the Aryeh and all that. But Adam, who obviously was on the highest level, because we're talking about Adam before he sinned, and that's the essence of the Jew. Because unfortunately, even now we still have. We're not so pure, so we have concealment of our neshama, but we have that neshama that is part of God. That neshama is like we have a little spark from this inner thought of Hashem, or from, like we said, the idea of blowing from within the breast of God, so to speak. Which means it's like we have a part of God the way it is in essence, which from that perspective, nothing. The whole world is nullified, and that's why Jews have this high level of emunah that we see. Sometimes you think about how many threats we have in Eretz Yisrael, and you think, well, if it would be any other nation, it would just pick up and leave, just start going to different countries. And Jewish people just have so much emunah and bitachon, and we live. Along with our physical life, it's obvious that we have something, a spark of Hashem, which makes us be above everything. And nothing could really, not spiritually, not physically, nothing could break us. We have the ability to rise above any kind of challenges. And to be able to overcome any kind of klippa. And that's the power of the neshama, and that's Adam Rishon had that neshama. After he sinned, he lost it, and then Avraham Avinu was the first Jew, and that's what defines a Jew, to have peace of Creator. So that's why that's the greatness of a Jewish people, that Jewish people are in a sense part of the creation, because besides that godly soul, we are part of creation. But then Hashem gave us a gift that He put a spark of God, a spark of the true reality, the true view of God, that we're able to see it, and that's because we're the emissaries of Hashem. We are the intermediaries to bring God to creation, to the rest of the world. So we have that emes, that view of emes within us, and we just have to develop it and bring it to reality. So.